Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another question of the week. This time asked by Useless? Anyways, question of the week. What's the difference between all of the new type weaponry? Like, what changes from a bit to a funnel besides the appearance? And well, because I just did a video on the Elmuth, I figured that this was the perfect time to answer this question. I've seen that there's quite some confusion about the distinction between the two, and it might be because of one specific weapon, which we'll get to in a bit. But first, we are beginning all the way back at the beginning with the Brabro. Even though it saw combat after the Elmuth, it was actually the first one to start development, so its Psychomu weapons were a bit more primitive than the ones used by the Elmuth. In fact, they're not classified as bits or as funnels. They're simply called wired megaparticle cannons that are both controlled and powered by a beefy cable. And it's also thanks to this quite unique setup that it is one of the few Psychomu weapons, like pure Psychomu weapons, that can be used by regular humans as well. So, when used by a new type, they can control the cannons through the Psychomu system and through their, special new type brainwaves. But when used by a regular human, or by a team of regular humans, one pilot controls the Brabro itself, and then per megaparticle cannon, there is a dedicated gunner. So they're kinda simulating being a new type as a team. So while this technology is the weakest, it does have the incredible benefit of when your new type pilots are unavailable because of some reason, this can actually be used by old types as well. Also, because they are directly powered by the Brabro's reactor, they are incredibly powerful, and they would also provide valuable data for the Zeong's arms. Which is then when we arrive at the Bits, Zeon's most famous new type weapon, which was most famously used by the Elmuth. Unlike the Brabro's megaparticle cannons, the Bits can only be controlled by a new type through the Psychomu system, and they are powered by an onboard generator. And this generator is then very much the defining feature of the Bits, which also explains why the Bits were as big as they were. Just compare the size of Zeon's beam bazooka, which has a built-in generator, to the size of the Federation's beam rifle, which had a rechargeable E-cap. And this size difference isn't just because one is a bazooka and one is a rifle, and bazookas are of course going to be bigger than a rifle. The reason it's a bazooka in the first place is because Zeon simply couldn't get their technology to fit within the size of a rifle. So, everything involving new type technology during the 1 Year War had to be pretty big and bulky. The Psychomu system itself took up a lot of bulk, which is why the Elmuth is so big, and then the Bits themselves had to incorporate a generator, which is then why the Bits are so big. And sometimes being wireless is also listed as one of the characteristics of the Bits, to set it even further apart from the Brabro's wired megaparticle cannons. But the thing is, the arms of the Zeong are also usually considered as bits, and as you probably know, those do still use wires, although these wires are just for controlling the arms and not necessarily for powering them. So again, a bit is a Psychomu weapon with an onboard generator, which we then see stretched to the limit in one of Gundam's alternate universes. In the afterwar era, the Gundam X, the Gundam Airmaster, and the Leopard Gundam can use bit mobile suits through the Flash system, which is simply their version of the Psychomu system. So this then means that bit mobile suits are in fact Psychomu weapons with an onboard generator, totally making them fit with the standard definition of a bit. This concept would also appear in other Gundam series, but never really appeared in the mainline Universal Century, at least not to my knowledge. The closest we got was the Neo Zeong's fingers being able to take control of enemy mobile suits. Still, dedicated bit mobile suits should totally be possible within the Universal Century as well. But anyways, a bit variant that does already exist in Universal Century is the Reflector Bit. Used by the Psycho Gundam Mark II, these don't have any offensive capabilities of their own, but it seems like they are still classified as a bit thanks to something else. They have a built-in eye field generator that can deflect beam weapons, both enemy beams and its own beams, which then allows it to attack the enemy from unexpected angles. Next up then, we have the funnel. This weapon was first used by the Qubeley, and it's also where it got its name from. They simply look like a funnel. Functionally, they're mostly the same as the bits, in that they're a Psychoma-controlled gun turret, but the big difference is that instead of using an onboard generator, they're using a built-in ECAP. And generally speaking, this is a big upgrade from the bits because it made the funnels much smaller than the bits. And it goes without saying that smaller things are 1, much more agile, and 2, much harder to hit. Plus, they were also simply cheaper and easier to mass produce, and I can imagine that maintaining these things was also a lot easier than bits. But there were also some trade-offs. Because they now relied on a built-in battery, they just didn't last as long. So they needed to periodically return to their mobile suit in order to recharge, and that is, if that mobile suit had a recharging port in the first place. Most of them did, like the Qubeley, but not all of them did, probably because of budget reasons, like the Yokdoga, for example. And in terms of power, they were also weaker on average, as most of them used weaker beam guns versus the megaparticle cannons that were typically used on bits. So while funnels are often considered as an evolution of bits, in certain scenarios, bits were still superior to funnels. But so, in short, the difference between a bit and a funnel is that a bit has a generator and that a funnel has an ECAP. So far, so good. Except there are 2 types of funnel that do have a generator. Let's explain. First up, there are 2 mother funnels installed on the Gaemok. These chonkers have a megaparticle cannon each and can therefore act as a funnel/bit by themselves, but they also have an extra trick up their sleeve. They can store 14 child funnels each, and these things are actual funnels, so they need to recharge mid-combat. And thanks to the mother funnels, they don't have to go all the way back to the main mobile suit. They can simply recharge inside of those mother funnels. And another cool thing is that the mother funnels can also act as a kind of relay for the messages sent by the Psychoma system. The Gaemok sends Psychoma waves to the mother funnels, which then pass them on to the child funnels, allowing them to operate at much longer ranges. So I think that the main reason why these mother funnels are called funnels instead of bits is simply to keep name consistency. You have child funnels and you have mother funnels. And secondly then, we have the fin funnels installed on the new Gundam, which is probably like the main funnel causing the confusion here. Because technically, they do fall under the definition of bits. And unlike the mother funnel, there doesn't seem to be a really good reason here as to why these are called funnels instead of bits. Other than, fin funnel sounding better than fin bit, which might be the actual reason here. But for our in-universe explanation, we turn to the Master Archive mobile suit RX-93 New Gundam. And here we get 2 reasons as to why they're called fin funnels. The first is that the Qubeley managed to leave such an impression on people with its funnels that people just started calling all Psychoma weapons funnels, regardless of what it actually was. And, we see this kind of thing returning in real life as well. People just start calling things whatever the popular name for the thing is. So the new Gundam's fin funnels were called funnels because everyone was simply calling new type weapons funnels, and they went along with that. And then the second reason is that the fin funnels were developed as an advanced version of the funnel concept with some inspiration taken from the bits. For example, they wanted a big gun to be installed on the fin funnels, so they just had to go with a reactor a la bits. And on top of that, they didn't just have a big gun, they were also capable of forming a defensive field. So the end result was something that surpassed both funnels and bits, putting the fin funnels in a class entirely of their own. So you could say that, oh no, the fin funnels aren't funnels or bits, they're fin funnels. But in the end, I guess it all still boils down to simply being fin funnels sound better than fin bits. Oh, and fun fact, the full official term for funnels is actually funnel bit, which you can see on screen during the battle between the Star Jagan and the Kshatriya. So perhaps the real distinction between a funnel and a bit is simply whatever you want to call it at that time. But yeah, the final funnel named weapon is the funnel missile, which really boils down to being a missile outfitted with a Psychomu guidance system. So unlike traditional funnels, which can do some crazy erratic movements, the funnel missile flies much more like a traditional guided missile. And while this does sound less technologically advanced than a normal funnel or a bit, it does have one big upside. It is one of the few Psychomu-controlled weapons that are usable within atmosphere. And finally, for something completely different then, we have the Psycho Plates from the Moon Gundam. Rather than having any kind of normal weapons, be it beam weapons or conventional weapons, these plates are made to be extremely sturdy thanks to the inclusion of a Psycho frame. And because they're so strong, they can be used both as a shield for defensive purposes or as a battering ram to simply slam into the enemy, definitely making it one of the more unique Psychomu weapons out there. It's literally just a plate, but it can be extremely useful. And that has been all for this question of the week. So let me know down below what you think about it. And if you have a question you want me to answer in a future question of the week video, you can also leave that down there. As always, a big thank you to the Patreon supporters. I hope everyone watching has a great evening, and I'll see you all next time.